Hi everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. Now, as promised, here's my Rafe Ask Me Anything video. Earlier today, he did an AMA with Empire Podcast. Now, the podcast itself is behind a paywall, so you have to be a subscriber and pay them to be able to hear it. However, a couple of fans recounted it on Twitter and on Reddit. So on Twitter, we have Una's Eye Patch. They did a fantastic job recounting a lot of the main points, and there's been a couple of threads posted on Reddit about it as well. So I feel completely safe talking about it, even though it was a pay-for-play type thing. It's pretty much everywhere right now. Now, if you're new to the channel and you don't know what I do here, I cover Wheel of Time show news. So if you like Wheel of Time content, make sure you click the subscribe button and the notification bell. I'm inching up closer and closer to 20,000 subscribers, and I'd really like to hit that milestone sometime before the summer. That would be fantastic. Now, before we actually get into the video, spoiler warning. In this video, we're talking about an AMA with Rafe Judkins, the showrunner of Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show. So, certain things are going to come up about Season 2 and Season 1. So, if you haven't already watched the full first season and you don't want to know anything about Season 2, we're going to ruin little things about that, and I'm going to make some conjecture and basically kind of guess what's going to come up later on next year and when the season is going to drop. So, if I happen to be right about anything, I could spoil that too. So, just be forewarned, there are a few spoilers in this video. All right. Let's get on to the AMA. All right, so we're going to talk about this AMA. I'm going to follow all of the major points put out by Uno's Eye Patch on Twitter. So if you don't know who they are a Wheel of Time Twitter account, and they basically put out all kinds of quirky Wheel of Time content, and they're a whole lot of fun. They're a character account on Twitter at times. So if you have a Twitter account, I left their handle down below in the description box. You can follow them over there on Twitter. And, of course, I've also left a link to this Twitter thread so you can go read it at your own leisure afterwards. Now, this podcast is Empire Magazine's podcast, and they asked Rafe a whole bunch of questions, and it was a fairly lengthy podcast. There's a lot covered here. So again, this is a summary of the points, and I'm going to follow the beats from this Twitter thread because basically it's all laid out really well. Again, full credit to Uno's Eye Patch for this. All the links are down below in the description box. So one of the first things that they talked about was Rafe explained he was given a 250-page document by Amazon from book readers, but what they felt could be improved. Now, we do know that there were a number of surveys put out over the last, I'm talking 6 to 8 months about the show. Some of them happened prior to the premiere of Season 1, Episode 1, and a lot of them have happened since January 1st. So I've covered it in the last couple news videos where I've talked about these surveys that have come out, and they're asking all kinds of Wheel of Time questions, whether certain characters worked well or not, what they thought could be improved, things like that. And I think that's where this document came from. So it is heartening. So it makes me happy that Amazon was listening to book readers and listening to fans and taking some of the stuff to heart and asking Rafe to change some things that people thought were very important. One of these things happened to be Matt's underdevelopment, which, yeah, I'm going to completely agree with that. It wasn't just Matt. A lot of the characters, in fact, all of the characters were very underdeveloped in the first season as far as I was concerned. Let's face it, they spent a whole lot of time with different aspects of the story rather than developing characters like they did in the books. But again, I'm talking from a book reader's experience where, in fact, I know the experience of these characters 14 books later. So they're very developed, and I kind of know where they're going, and there's certain things I want to see. But I did find they didn't spend as much time with Perrin and Matt, especially as they did with some of the other characters, and I would like to see more of that. So Rafe has said that he's going to give a backstory to Deepness' struggle with being a hero, which is pretty good. I think we're going to see some flashbacks to maybe Matt in Emond's Field. It's possible. I have no idea what we're going to do here. Maybe some struggles of being by himself. Maybe we'll get a whole half an episode or an episode dedicated just to Matt. That would be absolutely fantastic. Now, Perrin's backstory is needed to introduce his later struggles to new viewers, and while COVID caused major rewrites, the scene in Episode 8 with Fane was diverted to Perrin in a way that perfectly sets up his journey in Season 2. So, with this, there's a couple of things. Basically, what they're saying here is that Perrin was supposed to do something just a smidge different in Season 1 than is written. Now, I've seen certain things that show one thing happening for Episode 8, so I know the original intentions for Episode 8, but there were also a whole bunch of other rewrites and things happening here. Essentially, yes, they ended up at the point where things were going to work out. So Perrin's Hunt for the Horn, he's going to be the main character for that for Season 2 as far as I'm concerned, I believe anyway. That's kind of what the leaks point to. But we didn't see a whole lot of Perrin in the first season. So I think what we're going to see in Season 2 is a whole lot of character development, especially for some of the characters, like I said earlier, Matt and Perrin, who didn't have a whole lot of screen time. Now, Rafe also said Donald is doing wonderfully. He brings a levity and humor to his work that Rafe has fallen in love with, and is doing a perfect job of bringing Matt to life, and he brings a magic quality to every scene. That's fantastic to hear. Now, Barney Harris was, in my opinion, Matt. He was Matt Cawthon through and through. He was a perfect fit for that character. However, Donald Finn could be as well. I have no idea. I really don't know how his take on Matt is going to be. But if Rafe's saying he's fantastic, then I completely trust and believe him. The next thing that Uno's Eye Patch talked about here was the fact that Rafe says, well, he can't comment on what the scripts were originally. All of the rewrite changes they had to make in episodes 7 and 8 were written to stay true to the personal journeys of each character moving forward. I can attest to the fact that the original things I know about episodes 7 and 8, everybody pretty much ends up in the same spot in what we saw on screen. So this basically just confirms that, which is fantastic. I think I talked about this at Dusty Wheel a couple of weeks ago. But even though maybe the journey was different, the starting point for season 2 was pretty much the same as it would have been for most of them. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. Rafe hints that the Perrin Fane scene was meant for Matt, but can't comment about their original script. I can say that is something I've heard as well. So he's hinted at it here, but again, I've heard rumors of it, so it could just be that. I have no idea. Season 2 is definitely a combination of books 2 and 3. Some characters will be on book 2 journeys, some on book 3 journeys. So my guess here is we're going to see probably Matt, maybe Tom's journey from book 3. That's what I would like to see. Maybe we'll see Perrin and Rand's journey from book 2. And I think we're probably going to see some of Rand's journey from book 3. So we're going to get into that in a bit here because there's more from this AMA, some of the big points that come up here that I suspect point toward them actually going to the waste in season 2. Ray specifically calls out that some of Matt's book 3 chapters are deeply enjoyable. Maybe the quarterstaff scene is what Uno's Eye Patch says here, and I completely agree. I hope he gets to fight Gowan and Glad, and that Donald captures that perfectly in a bizarrely similar way that is incredible to see. Now, does that mean he's just like Barney Harris? Is Donald exactly like the book? I have no idea, but I'm happy that Rafe seems to be talking about him in such a positive light because everyone still talks highly of Barney, but if they're saying that Donald is just as good, I'm super excited about that. Rafe says that Rand behaves too childishly in book 2 sometimes, and that his emotional journey in season 2 will directly reflect his aging up for the show without compromising the truth of his experience in the book. So what I think he's talking about here is that he's pretty childish in book 2 because he believes by cutting out his friends and not being around them, he's saving them from pain and heartache because he's a dragon. He doesn't want to hurt them. He says some stupid things. He does some stupid things, but that's pretty much rectified by the end of the book, I would say anyway. If they're cutting all of that out, I'd be pretty happy with that. I don't need to see Rand pushing people away. I would like to see him more responsible for his role and accepting of being the dragon than anything else. Rafe explains the decision to delay the fever dream is a way to draw new viewers in, but also give them time to explore and explain what it means to be the dragon in terms of subverting the chosen one trope and the importance of reincarnation. So this was a big complaint about a lot of the book readers when they watched the show, is that they did the dragon could be one of the 5. So it could be one of the 3 boys or Nynaeve or Egwene, and they pushed that right up until episode 7. I do know for a fact that Amazon truly wanted it to be mystery because they thought it would bring new viewers in. So this kind of makes sense. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe perhaps they won't do similar things with making us guess later on because, let's face it, anybody with access to Google could have found out who Rand was right away. In the book, it was pretty obvious, but I mean, the show made it a little bit different. Very few non-book readers that I talked to would guess Rand. A lot of them are guessing Egwene and possibly Matt or Nynaeve to be the dragon before episode 7 aired. At least the ones I talked to anyway. So Rafe also says that keeping Rand as more of a background character in season 1 fits his character as someone who doesn't want to stand out and is reluctant to take the mantle of being the dragon. He doesn't want any part of it and has been set up for season 2 to wrangle with the conflict. That's absolutely fantastic. Yes, he was sort of a background character in season 1. He wasn't developed pretty much at all. Very, very little development for Rand in season 1, which is why so many people were shocked that didn't read the books when he was announced as a dragon, because no one really thought that he would be the dragon because he seemed like such an unimportant character. Rafe said that folks misread the Egwene and Nynaeve scene, and that they'll be keeping the death cannot be healed metaphysics in the show, and apologized to the fans for not being clear. A whole lot of the one power usage in the first season was not clear to any of the fans at all, whether there was a male and female at half the source, death cannot be healed, stilling cannot be healed, all of those things. There was a lot of questions surrounding it. Now, for non-book readers, the point was pretty much moot because magic is magic as far as they're concerned. Although people have read the books, essentially, it's a hard magic system with a lot of rules. Now, to be completely fair, in the Eye of the World, none of those rules were terribly explained well, and it wasn't until the second and third and perhaps fourth books that a lot of the rules were super established and we really understood what the magic system was and how it fully worked. So I think what they were trying to do with season one was perhaps going with that unreliable narrator bit that the Wheel of Time books do so well, and that maybe it leaves room for interpretation for certain things. But again, he apologized for people misreading it. Again, it wasn't a big deal for non-book readers because magic is magic to them and they didn't understand, although there were a lot of people, and myself included, that really questioned if they were just changing the way the magic works in the show. But he says here they're not, so that's a fantastic thing. He says the original script had Egwene using the healing skills Nynaeve taught her during her wisdom training to heal her as a circular theme, and she was not meant to use channeling to heal her. That would have been really cool to see. Personally, I think instead of channeling, if she had nursed her back to health with herbs and other healing skills she had, it probably would have played a bit better on the screen. Although I do completely understand, due to time limitations and the way they filmed it and cut it and things like that, they probably couldn't have that happen because that would be more of that very short episode taken up by a little bit of a tertiary story rather than what Rand and everyone else was doing. So there's that. The choice to make burning out physical was made to create a clear setup for viewers of the risk of channeling, and that the girls will struggle deeply with this event throughout the entire series. That makes sense. So, in the book series, there's no real physical signs of being burnt out. I understood why they wanted to show it the way they did, and the fact that there's different levels of it, because it makes it easy for the viewers, especially people who haven't read the books, to understand. And now that they've sort of kind of experienced it a little bit, it does make them absolutely horrified of it. Now, to be completely fair, in the book series, they aren't as scared of it as they should be. In fact, they're not scared of it at all, and they force themselves quite a bit. But I think they're going to change it just a bit from the show, at least from this comment. On the perceived power creep, Rafe comments that the ending of The Eye of the World was a battle scene that feels impossible to top, but the books do it time and again, and the show will too. They're going to need a massive VFX budget for the last battle. And that's kind of funny. I mentioned power creep a number of times in my videos. I didn't know how they would top that, but apparently they're going to. So I don't understand how it's going to work or look on screen. Yes, they're going to need a big VFX budget, and we know that season 2 they've already increased it. But I mean, are they going to take out the whole Seanchan army by themselves, or are they going to have more channelers on the other side basically to combat what they're doing? I have no idea. Pretty interested to see where they're going when he says that they're going to start one-upping this stuff every single season. On the Moiraine shield stilling situation, he can't reveal anything because of its importance to future seasons. Also, Moiraine will get to explore her true strengths, willpower and intelligence, over her channeling abilities. For those of you who don't know, this was kind of a point of contention with the end of the first season. So we're talking that it looks and appears as if Moiraine's stilled, and Rafe has kind of hinted at that a couple of times in interviews, but have never come right out and said it. Although the visuals, when we broke it down in my breakdown videos, seem to show Ishii like tying off a shield on her, which is what we kind of expected because we've seen that before in the books. Now, again, he won't comment on it here because it's important, but basically, I think this is part of the thing about getting rid of the power creep. They're basically cutting her down. She can't use her power. She's got to be more of a character actor for the second season rather than using her powers and being visually impressive. That's my guess anyway. I think that's what he's saying here. Rafe wanted to introduce the White Tower in Season 1 before even pitching the show, as the Aes Sedai are a core element of the story and one of the things that makes WoT unique in fantasy. Fully agree. I expected them to use the White Tower as a central plot point for the first season when I first heard about the show, mainly because it's visually stunning, it's a way to draw viewers in, and it makes more sense to introduce it in the first season, so I get that. On Moiraine and Swan's relationship, Rafe says as a queer person, it was obvious to him that they had a relationship and that it's critical showing them as individuals. They did. They fully, 100% had a relationship in the books. There's a lot of people out there arguing they didn't. Robert Jordan came right out and said it a number of times. So I don't know what else to say about that. I still don't understand why people are upset about it, why they're fighting it. They were pillow friends. They had a sexual relationship. They had a physical and emotional connection in the books. Why wouldn't they show that in the show? Of course they would. To me, it made perfect sense, and I understood it. So there's that. He can't confirm where the hut was, Teleran Rioid versus a Dream Shard, but they have matching Tear Ingriel, and Sarah was critical in developing this part. Concerning the wording of the oath, Moraine will definitely be exploring how much freedom it gives her in the future. So, for those of you who don't know, Sarah Nakamura is the book consultant for the show. She is probably, in my opinion, the only person on the planet who's read the series more than me. And I'm not boasting. I've read it far too much. Those of you who follow the channel for a while know which reread I'm on, and if you don't know, somebody in the comments will let you know. But yeah, Sarah's read it far more than me, and she knows it much more in depth than me. She studied this thing. This is what she does. And if she was critical in developing this, there's a reason, and there's stuff behind it. I was very critical when I saw the show and I made my videos about what they did there, but not because it was traveling, not because it was anything different, but because they did a terrible job explaining it on the screen. They used X-ray, in fact, so the extra content, to explain what they were and what was going on. I personally thought they should have showed that on the screen, and that someone shouldn't have to watch extra content to enjoy a show or understand what's going on. But if it was developed by Sarah, I 100% would be confident that it follows the metaphysics. It is real. It can be a thing. So I'm excited to see a better explanation for what they did and what went on, maybe in season 2 or 3, because I know it's going to be a real good one. All right, so the marriage vow take is 100% accurate. That was entirely intentional. The Age of Legend characters and their motivations will have critical impact on our characters, and the wording of the conversation between Lews Therin and Latra was 100% intentional and will be explored later. So there's a whole lot about this in the fandom. It was very different. We've seen a very different Lews Therin. We've seen a very different Age of Legends. We've seen a very different interpretation of it than what some book readers had. So in the books, we get the idea that this was out of complete and utter desperation and frustration is why Lews Therin did it. In the show, it was more of he was fully arrogant and full of himself, and this is just something he's going to do, and everybody knew about it. I think they're going to lean heavily on that, and that's part of the reason why maybe they don't trust certain characters later on in the series when they come to power, but I won't say much more than that because I didn't get spoilers for the entire series. But I'm excited to see where that goes. They want to say on the Seanchan, they're going for maximum punch in the gut impact, and the costumes are astounding in season 2. And Uno says here that there's no comment on the gags. Of course there's not. It's a little bit different, a little bit strange, but I get it's visually stunning, so I get why they did that. Maximum punch in the gut impact. I think there's going to be some nasty stuff we're going to see in season 2 that is going to really mess with some people. I'm excited to see what they do. Personally, I love stuff like that. I like seeing boundaries pushed when it comes to things like that, so I can't wait to see what they do with the Seanchan. I just hope they have a Texan accent like they do in the books. That would be amazing. Abby has definitely been cast, and Rafe kind of confirms the Desert Leak means that we'll see the Waste in season 2, and that we are getting more Aiel in season 3 than people are expecting. So we've seen the Desert Leaks. I covered them in a news video not long ago. WatSeries.com had them too. And Abby's been cast, and we're going to see more Aiel in season 3. So my take on it is we're probably seeing the Waste in season 2. We're probably seeing Abby introduce maybe the leaving of the Threefold Land by some of the Aiel coming into the wetlands. No idea how they're going to work that in. I don't think that they're actually going to travel to the Waste in season 2. I don't think they're going to get that far, but I don't know. You never know. And finally, this is something I really want to talk about. This is what I've been waiting for the whole video. No season 2 confirmation date, but Rafe said it's not mid-2022. So a lot of people speculated based on Priyanka's slip a few weeks ago now that we were going to get it mid-2022. Although I myself said it was probably mid and then a month, so mid-November. However, there will definitely be a gap between Lord of the Rings and season 2's release, but there will be very cool content for us released before season 2. So Lord of the Rings is releasing September 2nd. They do a weekly run, sort of like they did with Wheel of Time, with a couple episodes up front. We're looking at end of October-ish when they finish showing the Lord of the Rings. A gap could possibly mean 2 weeks prior to the release of, 2 or 3 weeks prior to the release of Wheel of Time, although I don't think it does. If Rafe is saying there's a gap, to me, you're basically setting the fandom up, setting your expectations. If there's a gap, that means we're probably not going to see it till next year. So my take on this is there's been rumors and a few leaks over the last couple months that have basically implied we won't see Wheel of Time until 2023. I've reached out to a ton of people trying to confirm this. No one will give me a straight answer. No one wants to. Of course, I think they're all kind of worried what would happen if they gave me a straight up answer for this. But the impression I'm getting is don't expect it this year, if that makes any sense. So I have absolute zero information on it, but based on Rafe's comment and based on the fact that he's going to release more things between now and the start of season 2, so we're going to see extra content, and the fact that there's going to be a gap after Lord of the Rings, and that Amazon may not want to do two huge fantasy properties within the same quarter, and technically within months of each other. They're going to want to kind of stagger them, is my guess. I'm thinking spring or early summer next year. It's my guess. That way, the release will be staggered from Lord of the Rings. It'll be in a different quarter for different profits. Of course, they saw a big uptick in Amazon Prime subscriptions when Wheel of Time was released. They're going to see it with Lord of the Rings. People are probably going to sub, watch Lord of the Rings, unsub, and then they'll sub again the next quarter for Wheel of Time. That's my guess. I mean, I'm not a business person. I know little to nothing about business, but in my mind, it makes full sense. If you're trying to get quarter numbers to look good, because that's what people expect to see, you're going to release big things in each quarter rather than all of it at once. I don't know. If anybody has a business degree or knows anything about this stuff, let me know in the comments down below. What do you folks think of the AMA? He gave a few things away here, and I was pretty excited about some of it. Although, like I said at the beginning of the video, tempering expectations for the release, probably in my guess, spring to early summer next year. That's a long time, a very long time. Let me know what you folks think in the comments down below. Thank you so very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.